And for a long time, Connecticut lawmakers have struggled to address the housing crisis in our state. By some estimates, our state needs 90,000 or so housing units across the whole state. A sweeping bill that passed the House this week aims to start to address some of these issues. Representative Tony Scott spoke on the floor for nearly 5 hours to express his opinion on the bill that was coming down the pike. Republican from Monroe, you're also a ranking member on the Housing Committee. So your opinion of House Bill 5002 is what? What's your overall opinion?
Yeah, the purpose of it was to try to build more housing, and I think we just didn't get to where we needed to get to. There's a lot of mandates when we're talking about local control into the towns and municipalities across the state that are really going to probably hamper some of that. Taking away that control, the locally elected officials, is going to be a disincentivized purpose to slow them down a little bit in their housing. So we're getting that feedback and that local feedback, knowing that area, it's getting it taken away. I think they're going to be really paused a little bit more in terms of really trying to strive to get more housing, which is all the intent of the bill.
So you think the way it is, it would slow it down? You would like to see, what changes would you like to see to amend that?
Yeah, we incentivize, more carrots, less sticks, right? Get that chance to allow these builders and developers come in and incentivize them to come in and want to build housing so that we can find the right housing for the right districts. Too many times, Hartford is trying to dictate what goes on in some of these other towns. There's 169 different municipalities, and to be honest, it's not a one-size-fits-all option. Each individual town has their character, has their design that they're looking forward to. We need to make sure we allow them to do that and not necessarily pass mandates down from Hartford to those municipalities.
What about the effort that was on the table called Towns Take the Lead? That at least the name of it says, hey, you decide what works for your town and you try to meet the goals the state set. Is that a good thing? Yeah,
it used to be what it was 2 years ago. It was called Fair Share.
Okay.
They changed the name because it wasn't very popular when it was called Fair Share.
Okay.
So what it is an allocation. They ran a report and they come up with an allocation of how many different affordable housing units across all municipalities are mandated. So they're mandating a number. So every town. So for example, Easton, who's in my district, has 7,500 people in the entire town.
Right.
They're mandated to have 1,276 affordable housing units, not just total housing units, to get in there.
How is that number calculated? It doesn't calculate based on population and land mass? How is it calculated?
It's calculated based on your grand list and how high your grand list is. So
it's dollars then?
Yeah, it's dollars. And the richer towns are going to have to pull a lot more of that weight.
So your town, Monroe, 18,000 or so people. One of the suggestions that, because the law the state has on affordable housing doesn't have a whole lot of teeth. It just says, we recommend you do this. Says something to the effect of 300 units for Monroe or something like
326,
that. So there's 18,000 people, there's 300 units. Is that a bad number in your estimation? Like, is that figured out properly?
It's not a bad number necessarily to have a goal to go strive for. Right. I think it's something that all the community should be striving to make sure we have diversified housing. We do need more housing. There's no question. People want to come to Connecticut, but if businesses leave, then those folks will leave. But the idea is to give those options, give the municipality an option of how to do it, not necessarily mandate how they should do it and where they should do it. Instead, just find a way to incentivize them to build that more housing.
So there is some, for argument's sake, medium density housing in Monroe. There's a couple of condominium complexes, Northbrook and another one across the street. Is that a solution in the future? We have senior citizens on fixed incomes. We have kids getting out of UConn who can't afford to buy a house in Monroe. Yeah. How do we solve this?
Yeah, we need to have a diversified thing. You have seniors who are looking to stay in the state of Connecticut, but they're getting priced out. They're ultimately leaving, going to other states. We need to make sure we're taking care of those. That's the age-restricted housing. That's something we need to be looking at too, to make sure that we're taking care of those folks and make sure they stay in the communities close to their family and friends. Not have to force them out. There are ways to do it, but again, I'd say carrots over sticks. Let's make sure we're incentivizing people in towns to do it and not necessarily even put those mandates on them. Because when you start mandating folks, it really pushes back.
So that recommendation is they want towns and cities to come up with about 10% affordable housing. I looked this up, and correct me if I'm wrong, is Monroe at about 1 or 2% right now? So if there's no carrot or stick, even if there was a carrot, it seems like developers aren't taking the carrot.
Yeah, and I agree. There's just not much land space to go. You're from Monroe.
Right.
You're Monrovian. In the past, there's not a ton of space to go. We've developed pretty well. The fact of trying to find a place to add 326 affordable units, and then no one's going to build anything that's 100% affordable.
Right.
So you're going to build maybe 1,000, 1,500 units to get to that 300. where are you going to build over 1,000 units in a town of Monroe? I don't know. You know Monroe well too. It's very tough to find that kind of area.
So when the local municipality has control, they do have the power in this bill to contest the number, right?
Correct. Yeah, so what we're going to do is they're going to get some information out that they're going to have to put back to the state, and OPM is going to look at the information. Why can't you build your number that's been allocated to you? And then they'll kind of take a look at that and maybe bring their number down or up, wherever it might be. They're going to make that final decision. And then next year during session, we'll come back and vote on those numbers and officially tie those numbers down to the actual municipality.
So that's going to go 169 times.
Well, no, we'll have it all in one bill
Okay.
that will go, and everyone's got to sign off and vote on your district in Monroe, Easton, Trumbull. If I vote yes, then I'm telling my town, my districts, my towns, my district that you're going to be stuck with those numbers.
So do you foresee, oftentimes people worry, it's like, look, there's going to be a 300-unit apartment complex right next to me.
Yeah.
Should specific kinds of housing be delineated? So it's like, look, duplexes fit here in Monroe, not necessarily an apartment tower. Is that going to be part of the discussion moving forward to get that local control?
Unfortunately, part of 5002 takes that away. So there's a piece of the bill where you can take commercial properties and, as of right, move them to residential properties. So literally, you could be in a commercial zone.
So if there's an empty Walmart, you could turn it into condos if you wanted.
Right there in the middle of and it's as of right, meaning that you don't even have to go through the planning and zoning department. You don't have to have a public hearing in town. You just come and do it right away. That's part of the bill, and that's when we talk about local control, losing that piece. That's not what that place was zoned for. That's not what the town wanted. But now they can do that, mandate it right now through that legislation 5002.
I could talk about this all day. We got to leave it there. Representative Scott, we appreciate your time this morning.
Thank you.